The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
What a week. Welcome to the program, and we are loaded up. A Football Friday with Fred. Fred White joins us. So we'll talk a little bit about the Celebrate 98 series. If you haven't seen it, Billy Ratliff is up on the YouTube channel. But on the program today, you want to stay tuned because we've got a lot to get to. Projecting Tennessee's Too Deep is part of what we'll do via Caleb Calhoun and an article on offthehooksports.com. Also, Julian Phillips transferring from Tennessee. Want to dive into that. And there seems to be issues with players off the field, not necessarily Tennessee, but it's something always to keep an eye on. And then you have gambling. Is that the new issue that has to be dealt with, or is it the old school stuff? Drugs, alcohol, DUI? Those are still serious. I'm not dismissing them, but what's the bigger concern for a college football program? I'm not talking about the safety of people. That is more important, but just in terms of gambling is so accessible now. If you're an AD, what concerns you most moving forward? What's your biggest concern? And also, you have higher expectations of Tennessee baseball or basketball. So we've got a lot to get to. So we're going to jump into that right now. And it is time to talk a little bit of Tennessee basketball. The Vols lose Julian Phillips to the transfer portal. Something I definitely want to dive into because we talk about rosters changing in football, but really, moving forward, it could be far more dramatic in basketball because one or two players can obviously make a bigger deal in basketball. Guys will mature later on. So we talk about transferring and all that sort of thing in football, but really you have to be a pretty special player like a quarterback. If you want to take Southern Cal, for instance, and what they were able to do with Caleb Williams, bringing him over. I mean, you can have a massive impact, but pretty much just a quarterback. In basketball, good afternoon, morning, Caleb, evening, whenever anyone is watching, you can have one dude that can change the course of a program and turn them from an average team to a very good team or championship team. What do you think of Julian Phillips transferring? Good morning.
I think Julian Phillips is transferring largely because I'm going to give some credit to Rick Barnes on this. And I can't believe I'm saying this. We talked about this last week with some of the roster turnover. I'm convinced now Rick Barnes is changing his philosophy. This is a huge sign. Rick Barnes loves the mid-range still, and he loves to have the length advantage on the inside. Well, Olivier Kamwa and Julian Phillips have both entered the portal now. These were two starters at small forward and power forward for Tennessee that were really lengthy and used size massively to their advantage. And they're both gone. And what is he going to get in return? He's gone for sharpshooters. Don't Connect, and I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not entirely sure, but I would assume it's Connect. But then also the Jordan Gainey, the son of assistant Justin Gainey. These were both sharpshooters at where they were. That's their thing. They're spot-up shooters. And obviously Santiago Vescovi is back. Sure, he added Chris Ledlum from Harvard for some defensive prowess, and I was concerned about that move. But when you look at the different changes that have gone, it's pretty clear he's focusing on elite shooters more than ever before. All signs are point to Freddie DeLeon being a great shooter, too, a four-star guard who committed in the middle of the season.
Okay, so changing philosophies, what do you think the philosophy changes into? Because the philosophy last year was dump it into a post and he kicks it out. But the problem was the post wasn't a real offensive threat, so nobody collapsed down and they just defended the perimeter at the three-point line. So I still think you have to have, unless you're talking about a vast philosophical change, if you're still dumping in the post first, you've still got to have a guy who's going to be able to scare people in the post to get defenses to collapse down. So there's a little bit of disconnect with me and what you're saying here. Are you talking about they're going to be some sort of oriented team first?
Historically, in his old school methods, usually you had two guys in the post that you had to worry about typically, and that's how Barnes usually went with. Think about the Celtics teams of the 80s. You needed to worry about Parrish and McHale. Yes, McHale had the fundamentals, but Parrish was a force down low that you had to worry about. And that's how many teams were constructed for years and years and years, and that's how Barnes liked to construct his teams. He's going with one guy now. I think he's going to make sure there's only one guy and then 4 shooters surrounding him. And he has that guy. Jonas Aidoo can be that guy. Uras Plavsic can't be that guy. You and I both agree. I think that Tennessee fans will be happy if he made the dumb decision to go into the NBA draft. But Jonas Aidoo can be that guy. And they have Kate Phillips coming in, so they have a couple of options to back up Jonas Aidoo. They got Toby Awaka too still. So they have options in the post. But I think Barnes is going to be focusing now on making sure he has enough spot-up shooters and enough options to go to. Because last year, if Santi Vescovi wasn't hitting, the offense was just a disaster. A complete and utter disaster.
So you have complete confidence in that Jonas Aidoo can scare defenses enough from the post and his ability most often, I'm referring to most oftentimes back to the basket, to create points that people have to collapse down. You have that much faith in Aidoo?
Yes, because in college, unlike the NBA, you don't necessarily need footwork and fundamentals in the post. If you're athletic and can pass, which Jonas Aidoo has those two things, it can really, you can be an impact player. There were a lot of guys historically that are like that. Jonas Aidoo is very athletic and he can kick it out. Now, yeah, that wouldn't be enough in the NBA because there's guys that are as athletic and taller than Jonas Aidoo. So his footwork is questionable. But those two things in college is enough. It's more than enough. And so I think Tennessee will be fine.
Okay, so I assume we're talking about Zakai Ziegler running the point if healthy. And then we would
watch out for Freddie DeLeon. I keep saying it, but watch out for him. He is a potential superstar.
Okay, so one of those two guys running the point.
Yes.
Right? Then at the 2, Vescovi.
Yep.
And then where we fit in the other shooters, and are you talking about basically the 4 positionless players and a post? Is that, well, not positionless because the point, but you see what I'm saying? 4 perimeter
positionless players in the yeah, a point guard, a center, and 3 positionless players, and who starts in those is a little bit doesn't really matter. Like Santi Vescovi will obviously be one of the starters among those 3 spots. If Josiah Jordan-James returns, he'll be one of the 3 starters in those spots too. And yeah, I think one of the transfers and again, one of the transfers or Freddie DeLeon, one of those guys I think is going to take the other spot. I think DeLeon's going to see the court. I don't know if he's going to see it as the starting point guard or as the combo guard next to Zakai Ziegler, and then he takes over point guard duties when Zakai goes to the bench, which that happens a lot of times in basketball.
Okay, we've got to see this happen first. But this is like Joe Rogan talking about aliens. We've got to see this happen first. But
that's amazing, man.
But based off what you've described, I like this team already more going into the season. We're months away, but I like this team more than I did going into last year. If Barnes holds by that, the concern to me is that it's going to work kind of okay and he gets used to it. It's kind of like a tuxedo. A tuxedo you go get and it's uncomfortable to put on and it's a little stiff, but you're like, man, I'll look pretty good in this thing. But you don't put on a tuxedo the next day. You wear whatever the heck you're going to wear, even if it's a sport coat or a suit. So that's my concern, is that he'll never be fully comfortable in this type of offense, and he won't be Tennessee tuxedo.
I mean, I could see that, but the personnel he's developing, it almost seems like he's going to be forced to be comfortable in this type of offense. Oh, I forgot about Jemai Meshack. He may start too, and he's more of a defensive specialist. But if Meshack develops an outside shot, watch out. I mean, we're talking a very dangerous team. But I get your point, but it has a lot to do with the way he's constructing the roster, where he is ended up. It's almost he's going to be forced to do this. So 2 years ago, when Olivier Camois went down with the season-ending injury, Tennessee got significantly better after that. They went on a run. They won the SEC tournament. They got a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's because Barnes was forced to play small ball and moved Josiah Jordan-James to the 4. That was a huge deal. So if James comes back, you'll have Vescovi at the 2 and James at the 4, I think. And then he'll find he'll use one of the sharpshooters, either DeLeon or somebody like that at the 3. But yeah, I do think he's changing his philosophy this late in his career, which maybe he watches this show. I don't know.
You don't even remember. You're too young to even remember the cartoon Tennessee Tuxedo, aren't you?
I'm way too young to remember that. No idea.
Yeah.
What that is.
I got called that in South Beach, and I just told the guy, I said, man, if you want to, because I told him I was from Tennessee. Yeah, I was like, if you want to go, we can go. And
oh, you were going to fight over that?
Yeah, he just kept calling me that, and it got on my nerves. I mean,
for the record, guys, this is where the cultures of Memphis and Knoxville are a little bit different. In Memphis, like, you're expected to be made fun of for how you look among all your friends, no matter what, and among everybody you meet.
Oh. Well, he kept calling me Tennessee Tuxedo, and then he said, how does Tennessee, and we're just, sitting at a bar. We don't know this guy. And he goes, how does Tennessee Tuxedo have a good looking wife? And I'm like, all righty, that's the line. Do you want to step outside? And he said, no. And I said, well, then you need to get away from me. He said, I was sitting here first. I was like, I don't care. You need to go.
Oh my gosh. Look at Dave over here starting fights.
Oh, I was the king of starting fights on the strip. The thing was, I was with the Powell High School football team who averaged 300 pounds on the offensive line. So I'd start it and they'd finish it. And sometimes I'd get dotted and I'd be out sleeping in the middle of Cumberland Avenue and I look out and they're finishing it. I was like, good job, guys. They're like, why do you smart off every time we go to the strip?
So wait, you were like, I don't know if you watched wrestling in the 90s, but you were like Eric Bischoff in NWO when Eric Bischoff would just do the shadiest stuff. And then he'd like have the whole NWO gang behind him with Hulk Hogan and all those guys come just jump everybody. But he would start it all the time.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't run. I wasn't scared, but I would get, I'd get dotted on the temple and then I was out. So that's kind of how that shook out.
Everybody, Dave was Eric Bischoff. That's what we're deciding now.
I don't know who that is, but if he was an instigator, then yes, I was that guy. So hit that like button. We need to do that right now because we got Fred White coming up. So we need to bring more people into the show. And I hope you guys love the Celebrate 98 series. It's a passion project for me, and it is up there. And Fred's going to talk more about that. Did anybody know that Fred was homeless and Eric Westmoreland took him in? I sure as heck didn't. Did anybody know that Billy Ratliff purposefully cheated on the final defensive drive against Arkansas by using his head as a spear into Brandon Burlsworth's chest 3 straight times, which was illegal at the time, because he was like, I can't beat this guy, so I'm going to go ahead and drive the crown of my head into his chest. That's what caused the blow-up play where Sterner ends up fumbling the ball. That's all in the Celebrate 98 series, and I'm very proud of it, not because of me. Any monkey could ask questions of all those guys and get great answers. So I'm just proud to be a part of it. So I want you to check that out over the weekend. We got Sean Ellis coming up, T. Martin, Dwayne Goodrich, basically everybody you can imagine. And we'll test the waters on Philip Fulmer next week. I'm not sure how that'll go. He and I have an up and down relationship, but I'll give him a call next week and we'll see. But we're looking at having Randy Sanders and David Cutcliffe. I can promise you that if I'm a part of it, we will not have John Chavis because he hates my guts. Today's tough question is now, and it's brought to you by Andy Mason. I'll tell you more. Today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I'll give John Chavis credit on this. He never physically threatened me. His son did. But he didn't.
Oh, I think his son came at me on Twitter. I don't know if it's the same son, but one of his sons came at me on Twitter years ago for just, I said the most benign negative thing. All I said was great at preparation, but he has struggled with adjustments, in-game adjustments. It was a glowing article on John Chavis. But it was just that one thing. I said he struggled with in-game adjustments.
No. He's just not a good coach. He just had a lot of talent. I'll say that. No, but I think this was close to getting more physical, and I would have lost because he was an MMA fighter. It wouldn't have gone well. Why are we talking about me fighting so much in the beginning of the program?
I'm actually, I got called. I'm like, John Chavis should have been the MMA fighter. The way, that voice.
When's the last time you've been in a fight, Caleb?
I never fought. Are you kidding? I was like, when I was 10 playing basketball in the neighborhood. Are you kidding? I never fought. I was not that guy at all.
Rebecca says, Scrappy Dave. No, I was never afraid of a fight. I also wasn't afraid to lose, which I don't know if that's a good combination or not. But
do you ever watch Bill Burr has a stand-up where he talks about how he loves the Pacers-Pistons brawl that happened in 2004? And he said, I love violence. Just not when it's being done to me. But I mean, I love violence. Like, and that's me. And
yeah, I tell you, the last fight I was on, I was in the Strip. I was a senior in college. And I didn't say no more fighting forever because I got hurt. Because I saw what my buddies, the Powell's offensive line had a Tennessee signee, a Vanderbilt signee, and they weren't even the two toughest guys. That was my best friend at the time. So I saw what happened to another guy, and I was like, I don't want to be a part of it because that guy might still be sipping food through straws, and that's been over 20 years ago. I don't ever want to see that again. And I was like, I'm not fighting anymore. My wife goes, thank you. Good. We weren't married at the time. It's brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate, who I grew up with, and we never fought. AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Save thousands or tens of thousands of dollars with AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Best service, best prices in the biz. It's AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Sign up. Rebecca, do not encourage me. Rebecca says, Scrappy Dave, I like it. I don't. No. Okay, so fighting is one of the things that you had to be concerned about back in the day, especially before the Strip was a big, huge apartment complex. And Tennessee's coaches had to be concerned about players getting in trouble. I remember there was one fight in which I can't remember his name, but he absolutely decked a player in intramurals. And he that was, do you remember who that was by chance? He in intramural basketball. What's that?
Tony McDaniel, wasn't that the Tony McDaniel suspension?
It was, and could have killed the guy. And okay, so there were all these old school problems, and one that Caleb is going to bring up is DUI and is drinking and is drugs. But those are kind of old school problems, and I want to compare them to gambling. So let's use this as a backdrop. What's happening at other schools right now, Caleb, and with other athletes? Because while I think DUIs are on the decline, I think, and it's not, oh, I got away with driving home last night. That used to be my generation, which was awful. And goodness gracious, I would take back a million nights. Not a million, but so Caleb, we have issues going on now still with drinking and driving. What are some of the latest that have cropped up there?
So some of the latest are recently Georgia wide receiver Denylon Morissette was arrested early Monday morning for several charges, including a DUI, following too closely, and speed limit violations. And he's another Georgia player caught in a traffic violation, which there's been a bunch this all season. And again, we've been talking about it. Kirby Smart doesn't seem to care. But beyond this receiver, Denylon Morissette, who actually did play 11 games last year, we find out that Jalen Carter, this drag racing incident that got somebody killed in January, he was driving on a suspended license at the time. That came out yesterday. In between those two, Henry Ruggs, who we all knew had his incident 2 years ago, has decided he's going to plead guilty. He's going to face 3 to 10 years in prison. Some people are mad about that. I would say to those people, it was obviously Henry Ruggs did not plan to murder somebody. He should be in prison, yes. But what good does it do anybody to keep him in prison for life? Does nobody any good. Doesn't do the victims any good. It doesn't do society any good to keep him in prison for life when he wasn't actually. This guy's not. He's not a psychopathic murderer. He made a horrible mistake and a horrible decision.
Yeah, it was almost over the top though in terms of drive. I mean, if you've ever been to Vegas and been on the Strip, I mean, you just got to be an idiot to speed on the Strip because it's
156 miles an hour. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there's so much traffic even at 4 a.m. I mean that was as dumb as a DUI as maybe I've ever heard of. Okay, I mean that was bad. So I would go harder on him. I've always thought that they should be on work release program and all the money that they make, NFL players, and they have. And Tony Robinson had to do this. He got off on work release to be a scab player, and as soon as the NFL strike was over, Tony Robinson, the former Tennessee quarterback, he had to go right back to prison. So then he watched the Redskins win that Super Bowl that year that he was a part of in prison. So I've always thought that what they should do is they should be on the work release program. They should be able to go out, make their money, and then all of that money goes back to the victims. And they have to
the
show
family of the victims. Yeah.
yeah, the family of the victims, or the victims if they lived but they were severely injured, whichever the case may be. So that's what I would have done. But not to get sidetracked. I think these are things that have been somewhat addressed. I think these are things that are always going to be around in our society, and you should always be concerned about it. But
Kirby Smart clearly hasn't addressed it, but yes.
well, no, Kirby Smart had better, and I think that racing is as big or a bigger issue of DUI from a very good source in the Georgia program that I was told. That's an issue because you have that little strip between Athens and Atlanta that it was almost like it was made for racing. I mean, it's just a wide open 4-lane road. It's separated by median. I mean, really, if you wanted to race, that's the ultimate place of any place I've traveled to do it. And I think though that Kirby Smart has a problem there, and I think that he will try to address it. But all of these issues, guys, as far as DUI, racing, doing drugs, the stuff that my generation did as kids that were stupid, I don't think are as big of a problem. And I'm going to tell you why. One, I can tell you my kids and their friends, they think alcohol is stupid. They do. They just don't think that it makes much sense. Now, I think there are going to be kids that you have marijuana that's legal now, and we may have some people that still think marijuana is actually absolutely a terrible gateway drug and all that. But I think that even players I talk to think that's a better option if you want to chill out on the weekend or whatever. So that you're less likely to get in trouble with marijuana, I believe. I think the biggest issue moving forward, and it's starting now, is by far gambling. So today's tough question. I'll lump all the old school problems together, Caleb, that athletic directors and coaches had to worry about. You got all those. I'll take gambling. I think gambling is going to be a bigger problem for athletic directors in the next 5-10 years than everything else combined.
So let's say up front, guys, what we're talking about is affecting programs, not affecting society. The old school programs affect society a lot worse.
Yes.
But I agree. Gambling is going to be a heck of a lot worse because there's no uniform standard. There's really no way to control it. There are no laws on the books right now at all to address this. I mean, every state has relatively the same DUI laws. You can't drink and drive or you have to pay a penalty. There aren't really any laws on sports gambling at all. And it's new.
Oh, wait, it's an NCAA violation. Giggle, giggle. So is paying players, but that never stopped anybody. I mean, it's an NCAA violation. That's not going to stop anybody.
No, and here's the other problem. If you crack down on gambling, and this is the big thing, which I think they should. They need to crack down. Dave, you and I know this. These 18-year-olds who get all this money, they're going to start gambling then under the table or illegally or having other people place bets for them, at which point they get in bad with really bad people. I mean, we know this. Which
is how the Tim Donaghy thing in the NBA went from a 0 to about a 12.
Yeah.
Or to use this analogy, 25 miles an hour to 150 miles an hour really fast, like within weeks.
Exactly. I mean, they're going to start like having, Tony Soprano place bets for them and making deals with the mob. And I mean, I'm serious. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what's going to happen. That's what happened. Look, we firmly believe Michael Jordan, that was a gambling suspension in 1993, 94. He was tied to some really bad people that he was betting on golf games with. You don't think that's going to happen with college football players who are younger than Michael Jordan a lot of times, dumber than Michael Jordan a lot of times? And I just, this is, and what happens when, drug lords, mobs, gangsters are connected to your football program because people are wanting to place gambling bets under the table and not get caught?
Travis says, come on, Dave, we were able to gamble in the 90s just as easy. Maybe that just wasn't my vice, but I didn't know how to do that. I could have gotten into a lot of trouble, but it wouldn't have been gambling. So maybe that's just me. I'd fill out a parlay sheet, and if I put $20 on it, that was a lot of money to me, so it didn't go any deeper to that. Now you have kids that have money, and you've got an app. That's so easy. I mean, you could literally do that in less than 5 minutes. So Fred White coming up next. It's a Football Friday with Fred, so stay tuned. Some thoughts that he had on why Tennessee's players didn't receive money at all in the 90s, and he stands by that firmly. We'll go with Fred White in 2 minutes. A Football Friday with Fred on Off the Hook Sports.
Family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, let's get to Fred White. Love it. Fred White joins us each and every Friday. Portions of the program brought to you by Tennessee Cider Company, including Fred White's appearance. Go to TN Cider Company. It's phenomenal, and they bring you the Celebrate 98 series, which is up and running. Interviews with Eric Westmoreland and a guy named Billy Ratliff, who made kind of a big play that is on our YouTube channel. Fred, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Dave. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm kind of ready for the weekend, and good to go. A lot of things I want to talk to you about, but one of the things that, so I'm just going to be really honest. Fred, Billy, and Eric and I have, and players in the future, we will have some interesting conversations off the record and off the air, of which I'm not going to share some of that stuff. But one that I wanted to share that really blows me away. And I was talking to somebody who's a huge Tennessee fan yesterday, and I was telling him this, and he just flat out didn't believe it. And I was like, okay, I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm telling you as a friend, they told me this off the record and I believe it. So I think we have this perception that everybody had their hand out and that boosters were given $100 handshakes at the very least. But I'm going to go ahead and share something off the record. Fred and Billy and I talked about that. Fred, you guys didn't take any money, and I'll stake my reputation on it because I know you as a very, very close friend, and you didn't for one big reason. And why was that?
You didn't want to get in trouble or get caught. Because you got in trouble, you got caught. You couldn't play anywhere. Not just at University of Tennessee. You couldn't transfer and go anywhere and play. Your career was over. That was it.
That's true. And you also would have hurt the university and maybe a chance at a championship. And I think you said something, you would have let your teammates down. How big of a factor was that?
Absolutely. You didn't want to let your teammates down. I recall when Coach Fulmer came into the room, 98 year, and it's a locker room and team meeting room. And they tell us that, one of our guys, one of our leaders had taken some money and he was going to be ineligible for the season. And then they brought up Al Wilson. You could hear a pin drop in the room.
Oh, wow.
Al went up there and gave a fake apology. It was all a setup. They had got him to, set him up to do this. But the room was so quiet. And we were sitting there trying to figure out, what are we going to do with our football season? So to have him do that, and it's Al Wilson, and he's the guy portraying that as if he took money, that was one of the most impactful moments of my career at UT when it comes to a team meeting room. Because that, you knew at that moment, dang, we're not going to be able to play with one of our best players on the team. Like our leader, he took money? What? Thank God it was a prank. But that was the message. That message hit home for everybody because it made you realize, whoa, wait a minute. If you take the money, man, you're done. And you do hurt your team.
Wow. Okay, so the bond, you don't want to let each other down, but then it's kind of cyclical because you're all broke.
Yeah.
You were telling me about cookouts that people would throw in $20 if they had $10, $5 if they had $5, or $0 if they had $0. I think it was Tyson Park. Mm-hmm. And so everybody being broke brought you together because it took a collective, not like the collectives now, to have a cookout.
It took a collective to have a cookout. So they would give you $15 after a football game, right? That $15 was supposed to feed you for Sunday, right?
Because the cafeteria was closed.
Because the cafeteria is closed. You had one meal on Sunday. Cafeteria closed after breakfast. If you don't make it to breakfast, you're pretty much, that's it, And after breakfast, you don't have anything else outside of that's open. You have to feed yourself. That was the rules back then. And think about something. You get $15. You're probably gonna go to Gus's or somewhere on the strip and get you a meal after the game. They didn't have a meal waiting for us after the game like these guys do. You just got $15. That was it. So you took $5 of those dollars to probably buy you a Gus burger or, shout out to Gus's on campus. That's probably what, because it was like $5 and some change. So, now you got $10 left, basically, and you may spend some of that too to eat the next day. So we were doing cookouts and guys just, whatever they had left over would be $5, $3, $2, whatever it may be. Somebody may have 10, somebody may have 8. Whatever you had, you bring it to the table, and we're gonna go get money, get food. And Eric Westmoreland, there's not gonna be a guy that played on the defensive side of the ball that don't tell you about this same thing, about how we pool money together to have cookouts. I can go all the way down the list. Sean Ellis is gonna talk about it. Darren Walker's gonna talk about it. Jeff Coleman's gonna talk about it. Al Wilson's gonna talk about it. Dion is gonna talk about it. Dwayne Gribber is going to talk about it. Steve Johnson, Cozy, every last guy that we bring on going to bring this up.
Wow.
Every last guy. You remember the cookouts we used to have? Yeah, man, we used to pool our money together. Absolutely.
I can't. And you guys are doing monumental things, and I just can't imagine if, sending my son off, which was the age that you guys were, and here he only – especially if I didn't have anything to give him, he's got $15 to get through basically almost like 36 hours to eat. And it just, that to me really stood out. Caleb, jump in here. Portions of the program brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters. They've been in business for 50 years. So you know that you're going to be taken care of. That HVAC unit may not need to be replaced, may just need a part or Freon. Caleb?
Fred, how much of what was happening in the 90s did that have an impact on you guys too? And what I mean by that is when you were being recruited, you were part of the 95 signing class, I believe, right?
Yes.
And that was right as Miami went on probation. That was just as Auburn was coming off probation. Alabama had the Antonio Langham scandal, which had them on probation, that they had to forfeit all their games. How much of that weighed on you? Like, oh, this is really serious. Because that seemed like you hate to say this, but the golden age of the NCAA bringing the hammer down on teams.
Yeah. Hey, we got to keep in mind when the team that I committed to was Miami, and they went on probation. Alabama was a school I wasn't going to go to because they tried to lie about them being able to go, getting ready to go on probation. And then Ole Miss, it just came off probation. And you know what I mean? So, like, that's why you don't take money. Like, man, I can't take no money because you don't want to be the guy that got your team in trouble. Because the guy's going to look at you different afterwards. You have let them down. That's not, you just didn't want to be the guy. Now, did somebody take some money? If they did, I didn't know about it.
That bond that just kept that's the theme of the series, is that bond that just kind of keeps cycling to make good things happen and to save lives, basically. So I'd encourage people to check it out. But Fred, there's one thing I want to throw at you. So I see that high school teams will play each other in a spring game. And that's different from college. I realize that. But I'm curious what your thoughts would be if, let's say, Tennessee played Clemson in a spring game. Is that something that's even doable? Because the spring games are kind of boring right now. What's just, and the thing I love about Fred, if I come up with a stupid idea, he'll just say that's stupid. But what do you think? What would you think about that to draw a little bit more interest into spring games? It's pretty bland this year.
I mean, spring game ain't really it's not really a game. It is kind of to showcase what you have. You're building for the next year, really. I don't put any stock in the spring game, not an ounce of it, because some of the guys that are going to be playing on Saturdays during the fall won't even really suit up for spring game. You're only going to see snippets of guys. It's really to come and see the young guys more than it is to see a guy who's a superstar on the team. You know what I mean? Like, those guys aren't going to play that long in the game. Yeah, I mean, you want to come see a guy like a Nico or one of the receivers that came in. These are the guys that you want to see, the young guys. You want to see what they look like. How much did they progress? That's more so than anything. So if we were going, you would sell tickets, yeah, but you also risk having an injury that could end up lasting all the way to the season. I mean, I don't feel like there's a need to play another team.
So you're just saying it's a stupid idea by Dave. It's not my first, won't be my last.
No, I'm not gonna say it's a stupid idea, but because quite frankly, they might do some stuff like this. But I just look at it like it's an extra game that you really don't have to play, and it's an opportunity to get injured.
Yeah.
Anytime you put it up, shoot up the pass, man, it's an opportunity to get injured, especially when you're going against somebody else. I mean, yeah, they do it in high school. This is college, you know.
Yeah, so it's
Leave
a little
it like
bit
it
different.
is.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, they do the scrimmages team to team in the NFL, which I always thought was interesting. I don't see how tempers don't flare more often, but they always do, Fred. We always see a tussle.
They do. And
So,
I think it's something about the element of surprise. Let's say you have to play that team later on, and we play Clemson in a spring game, and then all of a sudden, now we got Clemson in a bowl game or a playoff. I'd much rather play them in the playoff.
yeah, fair point. Speaking of the spring game, I'm mixed on Cam Seldon, running back, and I know you watched it, and I know you talked to people within the program. We've seen a lot of guys like Kirst Biggers come through and have good springs, and I like Dylan Sampson a lot. We obviously know what Tennessee's going to get out of Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. So is Cam Seldon a real thing? Should we be buying him for the upcoming season, or was that a guy to take on some carries in spring camp?
Oh, no. I think he's a real deal.
Okay.
I think at 6'2", 200 and some odd pounds, the way he runs, his speed, vision, I think he's a guy that you're going to see on the football field. I think he's somebody you'll see play on Saturdays. He's going to find a way to make some time in there. Dylan Sampson, I think, he might be the best of them all too. But I think he may be the best of them. We have a good problem to have right now in our backfield. You can't never have too many. I mean, if you look at what we had, Jamal Lewis went down, we plug in Travis. I mean, you can never have too many. I mean, and the next year, our senior year, we have Travis, and we bring in a guy by the name of Ontario Smith. So you can never have too many home run hitters in your backfield. I mean, that's a good problem to have. The problem you're going to have is trying to figure out how to get the ball in all their hands and keep them happy more than anything.
Fred, it's funny you bring up the Travises. How much did – I can't remember if I talked to you about this last week or not, but I remember I know we've heard a lot of stories. You guys all knew how good T. Martin was, and no one else did. But were y'all surprised, or did y'all know that Travis Henry would be able to just so easily, adequately replace Jamal Lewis when he went down in 1998 after the Auburn game?
I'll say you can't replace a Jamal Lewis. That first of all, you can never. you can't replace a Bertier. Remember the Titans. There we go.
Is that the game where they call a reverse on the last play and it goes 80 yards for a touchdown? Like that would never happen in real life.
Okay. I think that happened in Happy Gilmore too. Or no, not Happy Gilmore. What was the Adam Sandler football movie?
Longest Yard.
Longest Yard. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
That's Adam Sandler. Bobby Boucher.
Oh, Waterboy.
Oh, Waterboy.
Yeah,
they called a halfback pass on that.
But it was a reverse.
But he passed it.
Yeah, but it was a reverse thrown back to the quarterback on the last play.
like anybody would ever fall for that.
I can't remember Caleb's question. What was your question again, Caleb?
I remember the question.
Okay.
So you can't replace Jamal Lewis. If Jamal doesn't get injured, we're in a whole different. We wear everybody out. There's not even a close game past Florida. If Jamal Lewis doesn't get hurt, you see what he did against Auburn? He had ran for the first time he touched the ball, it was a 70-yard touchdown. We were just getting started. I mean, Travis Stevens went for 100 yards against Georgia, and no offense to Travis Stevens, but Jamal Lewis was on a roll. He would have wore Georgia out. That 100 yards for Travis Stevens would have been probably 180, 200 for Jamal.
Yep.
Plain and simple. You know what I mean? Now, you take Travis Stevens his senior year against that same Georgia defense, he might go for 200. But at that time, he wasn't that same back. You know what I mean? I think that when he went down, I'll never forget Coach Fulmer calling up the team to tell us that he had injured his knee and he may be back for a bowl game, but not likely, right? And I remember everyone looking at the running backs like, okay, well, don't nobody in the country know what else we have but us. We've already seen these guys. We knew what they could do. So we weren't, we got 2 running backs sitting over here that can do the same job as Jamal when it comes to like, I think you add their skills together, they make a Jamal.
Yep. And you talk about overcoming injury. A lot of people forget that Al was beat up that year.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes, but it was amazing how he was still a leader on the sideline. I'll never forget him having that towel and being halfway on the field cheering you guys on.
Man, leadership comes regardless of whether you're on the field or not. You know what I mean? If you're the voice of the team, you still be the voice. You don't take your voice away. And usually when guys are injured, they don't make the road trip. I'm so happy that Coach Fuller brought Al anyway. That makes a difference because we had one of the best defensive games we had all year. And our defensive leader wasn't even there.
So we are looking at this season, and Eric Westmoreland, I think you acted like it was the first time he said it, and on our recent video that's on our YouTube channel, but he said you were like the uncle. Because Al was I view Al as the fiery dad who comes home mad after work, and Fred's kind of the uncle that calms down everybody and the guy that you can go to for advice. What did you think of him calling you the uncle?
I don't think anybody had ever explained it to me that way. But I get it. I take it as a sign of respect too, because I could see myself as being the uncle because I was. So for most of the young guys that came in, that's, show you how the right way to do this. No, you can't do it this way. You got to do it this way. No, this will get you in trouble. I know because I already did it. And I'm a Jay-Z guy. Hov did that. Hopefully, so you wouldn't have to go through that. So don't.
That's my workout song every day.
Don't follow my footsteps and do what I just told you not to do. I told you don't do that. Don't do that. That'll get you in trouble.
So basically, what you're saying is,
I like to refer to Caleb as Aunt Calhoun.
What? So Fred, what you're saying is you were the guy that took the player under your wing and warned him you want to come to me before you want me to come to you before Al comes to you, is what you're saying.
You want me to come to you before the coaches get on you. You want me to come to you before you're in the breakfast club, which means you got to check in every morning. Hey man, you don't want to do all that. If you want some freedom, do this. Okay, you don't want to listen to me? Let me show you what's going to happen. Here it is. I've seen plenty of guys come in here as one of the top players in the country and leave in 2 semesters. I mean, it's one of those things where I did make a lot of mistakes my freshman year. I was mischievous. I did get into fights. And I also would tell them not to fight and then go pick the fight with whoever they were ready to fight with. I promise you, if you were on campus and one of my freshman guys came back to me and told me somebody was bothering them, you got a problem with me now. The coaches used to always wonder why I was in so many fights. Don't let one of my freshmen come back and tell me somebody bothered them on campus or was talking trash to them. Oh, you talk trash to my freshman, you got to talk trash to me. And I'm coming. So I don't care if you don't like me, but you're not going to bother my teammates. Plain and simple. Who you want to fight? You want to fight them? Well, you got to fight me first. I promise you're not going to win this battle.
So, because we talked about this earlier, Fred, before you were on the show, were you ever hanging out with Dave and he started a fight knowing you had his back just because he wanted to?
Yeah, we were talking earlier, Fred.
I got a story though.
Okay, Okay, what's the story? Oh man, can you tell it? Am I going to be forever embarrassed?
So we went to Atlanta. We were recruiting Eric Berry.
I was covering you.
You were covering. I was trying to, I knew Eric already, but like we went to the. So my cousin comes to get us, and we go to this club. Right. I remember we walked up to the door. Dave was like, "You sure I can come in here?" I said, "Man, you and me, we going anywhere we want to go. What you talking about?" Oh my God. You should see Dave walk in the club. It was so hilarious. And my brother was like, "I got you." My cousin was behind him, like, you good, we got you. You all right. Ain't nobody gonna bother you.
Yeah. I think I immediately went to the bar and got some liquid courage at that point.
You did. Yep, you sure did.
Oh Lord.
And then for reasons we won't get into, somebody named Austin Price.
I'm not going to talk about Austin.
Yeah, no, I'm going to talk about that. But he had to sleep on the couch in the hotel lobby. Portions of the program are brought to you by Craft Treats. Go to crafttreats.com, and with crafttreats.com, use the promo code Off the Hook. Use the promo code Off the Hook. You get 20% off of CBD treats that we probably could have used to chill us out a little bit, and it helps with digestive issues. It also helps with your pet's anxiety and your pet's arthritis. My dog has arthritis and takes it, and it's fantastic. So go to crafttreats.com, use the promo code Off the Hook for all their treats, CBD or otherwise, and get 20% off. That's the promo code Off the Hook. You mentioned Al Wilson. In that interim, you're still very tied into the university. You still, I mean, Fred, for those that don't know, he'll have players that will call him that played 7, 8, 10 years after and say, "Hey, what do you think about maybe this business deal or this sort of thing?" And who's the best leader do you think that Tennessee has had since Al Wilson? It's a tough one. If you got 2 or 3, throw them at me.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't think nobody can measure up to what he did.
Well, nowhere close to him, but just in the time period since. Who has been a great leader for Tennessee? And Caleb, maybe you have some ideas. I
got one already in my head, but I'll see where you guys go first.
So it's almost like you're asking. Let me just kind of give you what I'm thinking, okay? So Reggie White's one of the greatest players to ever play the game at Tennessee, anywhere. Well, who was kind of in that same light with him? It ain't really nobody there.
Yeah. So basically what we're talking about is Al was Mount Everest, and we're talking about somebody that might be the equivalent of a small hill in Powell, Tennessee. So
see that's the difference though. Like our coaches gave us the ability to be our own leaders.
Yeah.
They didn't have to create us to be leaders. We became our own leaders by what we did and how we acted and our integrity and our character. You can't manufacture a leader. And that's what I think has happened over the years since us. Somebody, because he's the running back or because he's the quarterback, he has to be a leader. That might not necessarily the truth. So I look at leadership differently. Most of these teams we've had lately had coaches that wanted to be the leader of the team instead of the players lead themselves. So I can't really look and see who I would think would be that. You know what I mean? Like,
so who was yours, Caleb? Who was your suggestion?
I was going to say, and again, not close to Al Wilson's level at all, but I thought Don Henderson was a pretty good leader of the 01 Tennessee team, which was the closest team since the 98 team to getting to a national title.
You know who I'm going to say? The two guys I will say. I thought Kurt Magid and A.J. Johnson did a good job of being leaders.
Yeah, the 2014 team. That's right.
I thought they did a really good job of being leaders. and that's who I'll go with.
And then I think the obvious one, but we're talking so recently, is Hendon Hooker. When I interview Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren for the Vol Reports, I mean, there's this kind of, they have a similar admiration in a different way. I'm not talking fiery leader, but he can get fiery from what I've been told. But they have the same type of admiration for Hendon Hooker that you guys had for Al Wilson. It's the same type of feel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a huge stretch. Do you?
I don't think it's a huge stretch. I think he's a good leader too. But I also think Joe Milton's a good leader. I think he's going to be one. I think he's done a really good job of being, being a leader, man, everybody respects you. Everybody on the team respects you. And they don't just respect you because you got a name. They respect you because of the work you put in. That's why we respected Al so much. He demanded so much out of us. But if you watch him work, you would have to work as hard because he worked his butt off. So, I think the leadership came from watching him not just talk the game, but live it. Put in the work. Do all the little things right. Those are the things that make a good leader. And I think that's what Joe does, which I think is the reason why he's going to have a good year this year coming up.
No, I've heard the same thing. I've heard a different type of leader than Hendon, but definitely a leader. Fred,
Hey, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Fred, the way you talk about Al Wilson, I just wanted to ask your thoughts. I'm sure you saw The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary a couple of years ago, and there was this debate on whether Michael Jordan was too hard on his players. But it seems like based on your experience with Al, you totally would have embraced playing for Michael Jordan and what he did in practice. Am I right?
Absolutely. Because, man, here's the thing. If you're going to play any sport, especially football, you need to be mentally tough in the first place. And if somebody brings something to your doorstep and tell you that you're not doing something the right way or you're not giving your all or whatever, they obviously saw something you did. So it's called constructive criticism. Be coachable. Not just be coachable from your coaches, be coachable from your teammates as well. How else you think you're going to win games? If I came to the sideline, I've come to the sideline several times and Deion Grant get on my case because I missed a call or I missed a read. Or I'll get on him. Or we get on Dwayne or whatever. That's what you do. You're supposed to in order to be better. We went to practice every day, and our thought process was, Al Wilson would say, we having perfect practice today. You know how much pressure that is? That means make no mistakes, none. Get everything right.
If you drop a pass, you're one of them.
That's how we practiced. That's how we practice. And if you're the person who messed up our perfect practice, hey, man, you're going to hear from everybody. You obviously not paying attention. And if you're a second string guy, we ran the same plays with the first team that we do with the second team in the same order. So if you actually mess up as a second team guy, hey, man, you're never going to touch our football field. You don't want you on it. You're obviously not paying attention to what's going on.
So strong. Fred, if people need insurance, all they have to do if they're in the state of Georgia and soon to be Tennessee, but if they're in the state of Georgia, all they got to do, buddy, is reach out to you. They can Google you pretty easy. And you're fantastic. What makes your practice different maybe than some other ones?
We're willing to help regardless of whether you do business with us or not. We're willing to give you the information that you may need. And at some point, let us earn your business. If you don't like what we have at the moment, give us a few moments and we'll catch up to you later and find a way to be able to do business with you. Our whole goal is to earn your business, not just accept it because you want to, just want a quote. My job is to earn your business and keep your business by also doing annual reviews, doing 6-month reviews, making sure that you know what's going on in your insurance business and what the rates are doing, what the state is doing with insurance, those type of things. Just giving you information that you may not have or giving you information that you never even thought about. So our goal is to educate every person that comes our way to make sure they understand what they're dealing with, understand what they're getting, and just be of help and of service to our community. So you can give us a call at any time. Our phone number is 770-381-0367. Again, that is 770-381-0367. Or you can also catch us online at fredwhiteallstate.com.
Love it. Thanks, Fred. We will talk to you soon. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, brother. You guys
Fred
have
White,
a good one. Go Vols.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate that. He's got his orange on. And I'll tell you what, if you haven't tuned into the Celebrate 98 series, it's been pretty classic. We're going to be back in just 2 minutes. And
Just trying
projection
to
for the
envision the
season.
club Dave went into with Fred. Sorry.
Yeah, that didn't go well. So I was at another club one time in Atlanta. I think it was SEC. No, it wasn't SEC Media Days. But anyway, we go into this place just because it was the closest place to grab a beer where we were staying. And this is Austin Ward, who now covers Ohio State. And I remember there was a spotlight because I'm completely comfortable around different people, but there's a spotlight and said, "We would like to welcome the only 2 Caucasians in the room." They spotlighted us.
Oh, Lord.
Me and Austin Ward, and everybody started laughing. It was super cool. It was funny. Yeah, Fred and I have some stories. Those are the ones we can tell on the air. 2 minutes and Tennessee's depth chart. We're going to lay it out for you. Who needs to wait until the fall? He's Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. Tennessee's depth chart, I think it's pretty simple, but Caleb and I have a bit of a disagreement on some of those. Stay tuned.
Family has been creating jewelry since 1986, each piece unique with a story all its own. I'm Rick Terry with Rick Terry Jewelry Designs. I'm a jeweler, and I want to be your jeweler. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler. My family and staff look forward to serving you. So please come see us. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut and downtown on Gay Street, right next to the Tennessee Theater.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
These mountains hold and defend a spirit far better than moonshine. A drink that holds flavor that becomes necessity. A hard cider made and relished by folk who are as hearty as they are legend. A refreshment that can only be found in one place. With a taste that makes you say, give me 3 bottles of the good stuff. Tennessee Cider Company, where necessity can be found.
Objective coverage. Hey, that's new.
If we get caught, we're going to jail.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app.
I'm going to need to see some identification.
Back to Dave Hooker.
Remember, Vassy Lawn and Garden, Man Alive, it's worth a drive in Cleveland. If you need to restock your industrial or commercial fleet, or you're starting a landscaping company, their buying power will save you money. Also, residential, Vassy Lawn and Garden, Man Alive, it's worth the drive. Go to vassy.com for more. That's Vassy Lawn and Garden. They bring you the Vol Report with Jacob Warren that is on our YouTube channel. So, Caleb, we're going to get into the 2 deep, my man, and we want feedback from you guys if you agree or disagree on our message board. So, let's take a look at the 2 deep, and if you want to kind of follow along or you want to read about it, it is on offthehooksports.com. So, pretty big undertaking, and we feel pretty good about this. So, as far as the 2 deep, where do you want to start? Do you want to start on the offensive side or defensive side? And then you can present to me, and I'll tell you if I disagree, because this column was written by our one and only Caleb Calhoun. So
let's start with
offense. I'm sorry?
Sorry. I was gonna say let's start with offense. I didn't.
Okay. So we will start with offense as we project the depth chart, the 2 deep depth chart for 2023. So let's start with offense. I'll tell you if I agree or disagree, and I might have some of my fun new drops because you know how juvenile that I can be, even pushing 50. All right. So Caleb, what do you got?
All right. So quarterback.
Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, here's what you need to do if you want to be a part of the program in the future. And also, if you want to get notifications, turn your notifications on. But Jacob Warren, what do they need to do?
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Jacob. I do need that. So we need you to like and subscribe. All right. So what do you got for me? Let's start on offense. You go. And I'm going to tell you if I agree or disagree via drops.
All right. So quarterback, I don't think any controversy. Joe Milton is the number 1. And Nico, where's the sound effect, Dave? Nico
Yes.
is number 2 on the depth chart. I don't think Gaston Moore is going to be in the 2 deep, guys. Sorry.
I agree. Hey now. Go ahead.
All right, running back. Now here's the first twist. I got Jabari Small as the starter, the feature back. But I got Dylan Sampson taking the number 2 back role from Jalen Wright, guys.
I love what you're doing with Sampson. I do. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think that Dylan Sampson is the next superstar at Tennessee. Hey now.
All right. Wideout. The number 1 wideout is going to be Brew McCoy. Anybody disagree with that? You've agreed that he's the best NFL prospect on offense, right?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, and this isn't set in stone, but I think Ramel Keaton is going to hold on to the number 2 wideout spot. And I think Dante Thornton Jr. will be the first wideout right off the bench behind McCoy and Keaton. And then 4th, and here's my big one, Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod were earlier recruits, but I think Nathan Leacock has moved ahead of them. So I think he's going to be he's a freshman. I think he's the 4th wide receiver on the depth chart.
So you think Thornton will play on the outside? Because we're just talking about we're talking about the wideouts, not the slot receiver that Jalen Hyatt played last year.
We're going to get to the slot spot. I think Thornton can play in either spot, so I think he'll be the first off the bench in both spots.
That's crazy.
I've got Thornton above Keaton. If he plays on the outside, I've got Thornton above Keaton, and so does Tracy Morgan.
Okay, wow.
Right,
you know what's funny is I was the Dante Thornton as Kevin Durant in this offense, but that's when I thought he was going to be the starter in the slot. The wideout, I think, is a pure wideout. Keaton's better. But in the slot, I've got Squirrel White starting, and again, I've got Thornton as the number 2 slot guy. So Thornton will be the first off the bench at wideout or slot, which is why he'll see a good bit of action.
Do we agree, Hank Kingsley? Hey now. Yes, we do. All right, tight end.
All right, tight end. Dave, we know you need the subscriptions. Jacob Warren needs the starts. So,
yes.
Everybody, this is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Okay.
Going to be the starter at tight end.
You got Jacob Warren and McAllen Castles.
Yes, I do. I have McAllen Castles because Miles Campbell's transferred. I believe in Ethan Davis, but I've heard enough stories that he's very, very, very raw. And with Princeton gone, I don't think he's going to be able to be the backup tight end this year. I think next year he moves ahead of everybody and becomes a starter. But I think this year, Warren and then a veteran and McAllen Castles will be the 2 guys.
I'm going to lightly disagree because I haven't heard enough great stuff about Castles. Okay. I haven't heard anything bad. I'll tell you if I hear any reason that I don't think he will play. But I think that there's a possibility they would go 4 wide when Jacob's not on the field. And I think there's a possibility that you would like Ethan Davis because of his athleticism. So I'm not downing Castles. I'm just unsure about Castles, but it is May. All right. So
what we largely agree is this year it's not going to be a by committee tight end set. It's going to be Jake Warren or 4 wide for most of the time.
I would think, yeah, it was pretty much 50-50. They swapped series last year, Princeton fan and Jacob. So I don't think you're going to see that. All right, so let's run through the offensive line.
All right, left tackle. I did not think this was going to work out, but I've heard enough good reports that I think John Campbell Jr. takes over at left tackle this year with Jeremiah Crawford as the backup.
Yeah, I pretty much know that to be true. Hey now. Keep rolling.
Right. Left guard. Texas transfer, Andres Carrick. I think he takes over the starting job at left guard, and Ollie Lane is a longtime veteran, so I think he'll still be the backup left guard.
I'm going to give that both a
Hey now.
and.
That's crazy.
I think Addison Nichols would be the backup at left guard.
Okay.
I think he'd be the backup at all the guard positions because I think they're a little light there. All right.
Even
so
despite
center,
Ollie Lane's experience, because Ollie Lane's played a lot. You think?
I just feel like somebody I talked to actually yesterday, coincidentally enough, that it would be Nichols. But if they had two guys go down, which is very possible in the SEC, I think Lane's right there. But go on to center.
Okay, so my center, and this is why I didn't have Addison Nichols in the guard spots. I've got the obvious Cooper Mace starting at center, but then I've actually got Addison Nichols as the backup center. And I think they're going to want to get him as many reps at center as possible so he's ready to go in case Mays gets hurt.
I believe that's absolutely correct.
Hey now.
All right.
And so right guard, you're probably going to disagree with me on this because you did with left guard. You'll agree with the starter, Javonte Spraggins. But again, I think because Ollie Lane will be the first guard off the bench behind Carrick or Spraggins. So I got him as the backup again at right guard.
Okay. I could roll with that the same way I did left guard. All right, right tackle?
And right tackle, Gerald Mincy moved over. I think he's going to be the starter there. And I think he's not Darnell Wright, but I think he's a potential star. So I think he's going to be the starter. And Jeremiah Crawford is going to back up John Campbell Jr. and Gerald Mincy. He'll be the first tackle off the bench behind Campbell and Mincy.
My thoughts on the left tackle are this. First portions of the program brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I do not have any problems with my eyesight far away or up close, and it's pretty awesome. So you need to check them out. And Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn also has the vision centers to take care of you, and their vision centers are simply awesome. As far as right tackle, it's going to be a fall off there, but I think that's the absolute direct decision that Tennessee will go in. All right. Do you want to turn it to defense now?
Yep. And they finally seem to have the depth they need at defense. We'll start with edge rusher, which, as you know, edge rusher and defensive end are a little bit different. The edge rusher could play with his hand down or his hand off, and it just depends on what they want to do in the moment. I think the starter for that one will be Roman Harrison. I know we all believe in Joshua Joseph's long-term potential, but Mike Eckler all but basically said Roman Harrison was ahead of everybody in spring camp. And I don't think he's a veteran. He was third on the team in tackles for a loss last year. So I think Harrison holds it. Joseph is right behind him.
Okay. I can roll with that. I'll give that a big
Hey now.
All right.
Defensive tackle, Amari Thomas is obviously the top defensive tackle. We agree with that. And then I'm going Bryson Eason will be the number 2 guy, Karat Garland, the number 3 guy, and DeJoun Terry, number 4. And for the record, Elijah Simmons, Nathan Robinson, and Arizona State transfer Omar Norman Lott will all be part of the rotation. I think the 3 main guys will be Amari Thomas, Bryson Eason, and Karat Garland.
Elijah Simmons is the X factor. He has the ability, if he gets mean and aggressive, he could, I'm not comparing him to Reggie White, okay, but, Reggie White was soft a little bit his junior year and then had a fantastic senior year. So if you see that sort of jump, I think he has that sort of ability. He could be the guy at the end of the year that, if he has the right mentality we're talking about, is the breakout player on this football team. I believe that. I'm not saying it'll happen because mentality is a big part of the game, but it could happen. So I would add that in there for a little bit of context. What else you got?
Okay. Would you say Thomas and Eason will be the main starters in the middle, though?
Unless Simmons just suddenly goes crazy.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the other edge rusher,
Thomas definitely. I mean, if Simmons comes out of this, if Simmons just gets darn angry, and I remember Albert Haynesworth, Jeff Fisher told him, he said, "You just got to get so angry and during a game that because he lacked a little bit of that to play hard all the time." Now it resulted in him raking his cleats across the Dallas Cowboys offensive lineman's face, which is bad. But if Simmons turns into that, where he gets angry at football, the guy that's across from him at life during those 60 minutes, then that's the X factor on the defensive line and maybe the entire team.
For Davis patches O'Houlihan from dodgeball. You got to get mean. You got to get angry.
Yeah, exactly. He needs to look over and see his wife with another man and his kids giving him the bird. That's what he needs.
Exactly. All right. So the other edge rusher, this is, I separate the Leo versus the defensive end because the defensive end is the guy on the other side who plays always with his hand down. And I've got Tyler Barron starting there with Byron Young gone, and I think Tyree West is going to back him up this year. And so I got Tyler Barron and Tyree West.
I will give that a big.
Hey now.
That's absolutely correct. What else?
All right, Mike linebacker. Aaron Beasley resuming his role that he had last year. And I've heard good things, particularly from Josh Ward, that Elijah Herring will be his backup this year.
I can see that. I don't think you want Aaron Beasley to get hurt, though.
Yes.
If there were 3 guys, then obviously the quarterback is always one with any team. And then if I made a list of 3 guys, Beasley might be the one guy that. But you got Healy too. But go ahead, continue with the list.
Yeah. So on the weak side, which is replacing the role Jeremy Banks had, I've got Keenan Peely as the starter. But this is one where you can afford an injury because I think the guy backing him up, Arian Carter, young guy, but I'm hearing a lot of good things about him.
See, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I think, and this is based off me watching their tape, and I'll do a little digging to have some better insight next week. I think that Peely seems like a more natural fit at Mike, and then maybe you get Arian Carter and you just said his name,
and Elijah Herring
no,
Aaron Beasley.
Yeah, maybe put Beasley on the outside, possibly. I'm just throwing that out there. Nothing I've been told.
Okay. I mean, I feel like Beasley was sent on a lot more rushes last year and was even less reliable in coverage than Banks, even though Beasley was a natural safety. But we'll see. So that's the only reason I had him at Mike.
Yes.
Because I think weak side has to be in coverage a little bit more.
Okay.
So cornerback. Now, this is my going all out there. I think Jordan Matthews becomes the number 1 cornerback. The freshman out of Louisiana, I think he becomes the number 1 cornerback, and I think he finally becomes what Josh Heupel has been looking for this whole time.
I'm your huckleberry.
Possibly. I think that there's a realistic chance of that. And I think he could be Tennessee's shutdown corner that they've been missing for so long. What else you got?
And the number 2 corner will be Gabe Judy-Lally, the other BYU transfer on the other side. I think he's a fundamentally sound cornerback, the guy that can guard the number 2 receiver, but is just not athletic enough to guard the number 1 receiver. And that's where I got him.
That's crazy.
I think Gabe Judy-Lally is going to be the backup at almost every position in the secondary.
All right, so who starts? Well, do you think my third guy starts at the other spot, which is Warren Burrell, who returns from injury?
Hey now.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And the 4th cornerback on this is I have Kamal Hadden.
Yeah, he's a dude.
All right.
I don't want to say anything bad about him, man. He's fine. He seems like a great young man.
He's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I need to do?
Why don't you shut the hell up?
Go ahead. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to run a kid down.
All right, at the star position. All right, I'm going to be a little mean here, but Tamarian McDonald was a starter all last year. I don't think he's in the rotation this year. I'm sorry. I just think he was so awful last year. I'm sorry, Tamarian. I hope I didn't sabotage a negotiation you had with him on the show, but
no. So what? But we're not going to say this about any player.
You suck.
Okay. So, but seems like you're close to that. So I want to get far away from that. He's a fine young man. He's doing a great job.
Okay. Dave is the participation trophy guy.
Well, we'll see.
So Danico Slaughter I have he started a little bit at corner last year. I think he's going to move over to star this year and start at star. And
I would have Slaughter actually at that other cornerback position. So, but again, I'm not. I'll give you insight when I have it. I'm just looking at skill set. I'm not saying that he's going to be that, but based off anything I've been told, but that just seems like that way at skill set. Go ahead.
That's possible, but I thought with Burrell and Gabe Judy-Lally, neither who played last year, they would take it. But you might be right. But I have Slaughter starting at star, and then I have Brandon Turnage right behind him. Turnage backed up Theo Jackson a couple of years ago, and then his one start was SEC Defensive Player of the Week. I think he might get that role back this year.
Okay, so I'm much higher on Slaughter than you are, and I think Gabe Judy-Lally is going to be a utility player across the secondary and very valuable. So even if he doesn't start, I think at the end of the year, you're going to look at him and say, that's a very important player because somebody's going to get hurt at some point or
that's true.
Suspended because some drunken idiot comes into their girlfriend's room.
And they don't realize how strong they are, and they throw a punch and accidentally break their face.
But other than that, all right, what else we got?
All right, so at strong safety, no surprise, Jalen McCullough is the starter. And I think and my shock is that I think Jordan Thomas takes the backup role. The reason is a lot of people talk about Andre Turntine, but based on things you told me and things I've read, it just doesn't seem like he's figured it out.
That's crazy.
I'm taking Gabe Judy Lawley
as the back. So you got him as the backup just all across the board.
I really do. Yeah,
okay.
I think he's a smart guy. He's going to learn all the positions, and I think he's definitely going to be the backup of the two safety positions. And in a pinch, he would be able to do so at cornerback.
All right, and
that's
then my
pinch.
My free safety is the utility defensive back of last year, and the guy who I thought really emerged towards the end of the year, and that's Wesley Walker. I think is going to replace Trayvon Flowers at free safety.
Hey now,
love that.
And behind him will be the son of Rodney Harrison, Christian Harrison, who I feel like is football smart. And if there's one position in the secondary that, I mean, they all require football smarts to a degree, but the one that requires the most football smarts is free safety. So I think Christian Harrison will be ready.
say wham.
I'm with that.
All right.
Trying to figure out a way to work in that draw, but that one may go away. All right. Do we have anybody left, or are we good?
Well, special teams, I think Charles Campbell starts at kicker. Jackson Ross, the rugby dude, starts at punter. And Dylan Sampson will be the kickoff returner, while D. Williams is the punt returner. And don't underestimate this, guys. Matthew Solansky is the long snapper. With Morgan Cox still in the NFL, Tennessee football is long snapper you.
It is. It's been punter you. I mean, you just stop by Knoxville and you become an NFL punter. Ask Tommy Townsend.
Yes.
So there we go. Weekdays, 10 a.m. Check out the Celebrate 98 series. Don't forget to do what, Jacob Warren?
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Yes, he does. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hope everybody is having a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you each and every weekday at 10 a.m.